Mr. Johnson.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the invite. I'm glad you're all here, and it takes time out of your lives too. And I'd like to say, I'm not up on all the issues in your city. I'm a new guy in the block. I came from Kamloops, BC. I worked 29 years in the railway, and I've been a blue-collar worker, and I do realize what homelessness means. I've supported the Salvation Army in Kamloops for 18 years. I've helped the SPCA. I know what homelessness is. I've had friends who had nowhere to go, and they stayed in my house. I know what it is for people to feel hungry. I've been there myself, and it's a challenge in life. Step away from the table sometime in your life and just not eat for 2 days and see how you feel. Put yourself in that ballpark. Then you understand. I had a friend one time, he ran for the alderman in the city of Kamloops, and he had more money in his pocket. I don't like to beat around the bush, folks. I'm right down the middle. Honesty is what works. I like a level playing field. That's why I put my name in the ring, and I had an 88-year-old woman ask me to step in, and I thought, why not? What have I got to lose? I got a hell of a lot to gain. So I'd like to thank you for being here, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Lord.
Well, thank you and welcome everyone. I'm sure pleased to see all of you here. As my worthy opponent has mentioned, some of us are very familiar with poverty, and certainly I spent some time as a teenager on the street. I've stayed in homeless shelters, and so I was very familiar with it. I've also been well known in town as the owner of Casablanca Video. When I started that business, believe me, I knew all about poverty because the small business people in the city often struggle in their first number of years. When I was first elected on council, it was very clear to me looking ahead that echo baby boomers, which were then in their teenage years, were going to be moving out in droves. And I realized that we had an affordable housing crisis coming at us. So I looked for solutions, and I proposed that the only solution that was pragmatic was to legalize basement suites. So at that time on council, I was a parade of one. I could not get anyone interested in promoting that issue, but nonetheless I pursued it. When I went with the province and became an MLA, it was one of the first issues I got into, and I'm proud to say that I was instrumental in getting building codes changed province-wide to allow for the legalization of basement suites. I chaired up that committee, traveled the province. I knew from Casablanca Video that having talked to thousands and thousands of the public, I knew what their concerns were on that front. I worked on poverty a lot. I worked on homeless issues a lot. I proposed many solutions, which I'm proud to say have made a big difference. Right now I'm looking at not just the legalization of basement suites, but a number of other housing forms. And frankly, we also need to look at the other side of the equation, which is wealth creation. I mean, why do we need all this affordable homes if everyone was making enough money? That's why I proposed in this election that one of my platform issues would be to double the success rate of small business in this city so they could pay more, provide better jobs, provide more jobs, and perhaps creating wealth on the other side of the equation might also address affordable housing issues.
Thank you, Mr. Lord.
Thank you.
Mr. McIver.
Thank you, Kirk, and thank you to Avenue Magazine for sponsoring this event today. My 9 years on council, I'm happy to say I've had the opportunity to do some of the work on homelessness. I served on the Metropolitan Calgary Foundation Board, which is a housing company that looks after seniors housing. I served as the chair of the Calgary Housing Company for 3 years, which you may not know, maybe you do, is the largest landlord in the city of Calgary, as sad as that is. Today there's about 15,000 homes under Calgary Housing that house about 35,000 people. When I was chairing that board, there was about 11,000 homes and about 25,000 people. That shows how many more people are under that care just in the last 3 years. When the new land use bylaw was introduced in 2007, I was instrumental in having the S modifier added to it. The S modifier is jargon, but really it's a simple way to add secondary suite eligibility to any residential land use simply by adding an S to the description. In other words, cut a little red tape. Since that time, City Council has approved hundreds of secondary suites in the newly approved areas simply by adding that S modifier at the time of approval. However, we have fallen down in the established areas of the city and not approved nearly as many. So to find that solution, actually at the last council meeting, I brought forward a motion to put policy in place for established communities. And with two goals. One, to make it easier to approve secondary suites, and second, to make sure that people welcome them, that we protect the character and the essence of even those single-family neighborhoods while adding in secondary suites. I think that's the way of the future. I think that's one of the most cost-effective ways to do it. As the mayor, I intend to get that job finished. Simple math would tell you if there's 300,000 homes in the city and you have a secondary suite in every 20th home, that would be 15,000 homes.
Thank you, Mr. McIver. Mr. Nenshi.
Thank you, and thanks as everyone to Avenue Magazine for organizing this, and in fact for the discussion throughout the year on Big Idea. If you haven't been reading the blog, you should. It is full of smart, thoughtful ways of thinking about the issue of affordable housing. You know, we all know that this is a big problem. We know that the issues of homelessness and affordable housing in the city are a major issue. So I think the question we have to ask ourselves is, how come we haven't been able to do anything about it? What has been preventing us from adopting ideas like inclusionary zoning that have been in place in Vancouver since 1988 in order to move forward on this? And I would suggest to you that we've got to focus here on three areas: policy, practice, and perception. The issues of perception and practice are a little bit dealt with by the 10-year plan to end homelessness. The real problem is policy. So for example, Alderman McIver's initiative to add the S, let's put it on the table, has been an enormous failure. 63, not hundreds, 63 suites in the entire city have been approved. And this is a very, very big problem. The new areas don't have adequate infrastructure or transportation. Alderman McIver's proposal is not to create a policy, it's for administration to create a report to start thinking about what a policy might look like, and report back next January long after the election. We got to move much faster on this. We know what the issues are, so two important policies we've got to implement right away. Secondary suites in all existing neighborhoods subject to a few reasonable conditions, and zoning that makes sure that every new development has a mandatory set aside for affordable housing. That's the way we increase the housing stock. Increasing the housing stock is just part of what we have to do, of course. We have to focus on transit, transportation, and other social policy, social inclusion policies. But those two simple policies that have succeeded in many places, about which the debate has been had, we need to just move forward with. And that's the kind of leadership we need our councils for.
Thank you, Mr. Nenshi. Mr. Stewart.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. I'm Wayne Stewart. I was the CEO of the Calgary Homeless Foundation as we developed the 10-year plan, which I believe is a very good plan. And I'm running for mayor. One of the advantages of being last is there's very much less to say. But that also saves me some time. To meet the need for affordable housing, we need land and housing units, and we need subsidies for those who cannot afford market rent. United Way used to say a great city is great for everyone. And we can translate that into, unless the city is great for everyone, it can't be great. And at this point, the city is not great for those who have no homes. We must make this city great. A number of things can be done. Well, zoning for secondary suites must be changed. The rules in general are not an issue. The issue is implementation. We can adjust the rules, we can rank and grade all we want, and nothing will change until we get to implementation. So my first step, and I believe this has to be done, is developing relationships with all those who affect affordable housing in our city. Not only private sector nonprofits, but also other levels of government. We can and we must increase the stock of affordable housing in Calgary, and we will.